Me with those tandy hearts. I think everyone has something, right? Like, yeah, Domino's pizza. Tandy hearts like love hearts. You can't eat them. I've done a few things. First episode of Pokemon makes me feel weird. Oh, like the proper couple of things actually now that I'm thinking about it. First episode of Pokemon makes me feel... I was ill a lot as a kid, right? First episode of Pokemon makes me feel like that. The mini game in Super Mario Sunshine in the dot level, there's like the thing where you ride on the back of like horrible gross squids. I remember playing that as a kid and just thought of sickness both halfway through or just like threw up, and like now playing that makes me feel really ill. And then also the other thing is Cinder Toffee. So the stuff that's inside Crunchies, but then also just like Cinder Toffee that you can bought anywhere. Because when I was in year 6, I went on like an Outward Bound thing with like my entire year. Like my entire year went to a place called Derwent Hill, which is in the Lake District. And, 30 odd kids, all aged 10, couple of teachers and my mate's dad who was there to help out. We all went to this Outward Bound course. Just one of those things where, you do like rock climbing, you go for like long walks through. Phil, I've just seen what you said about rice, and I'm going to mention it now. You've given me permission to mention it now after that chat. We'll get to the rice incident. So all of these kids went to this Outward Bound course, and we're all there. And the first day we do rock climbing in the morning, and in the afternoon we do like paddling on kayaks in the reservoir. And then that night, one of these kids says they don't feel very well and they have norovirus. So this kid starts to throw up, and that happened overnight, and everyone kind of like heard like, oh, like Ashley's really ill. And then the next day, as we were like going out and doing a day of activities, and then like 15 people in the year started to throw up. So throughout the day, like kids were getting norovirus. Because we're all just stuck in this small house in close quarters, eating together, and everyone started to throw up throughout the day. So throughout the day, like 50, it was like 5 people throwing up, 10, 15. By the time we got back and we're having dinner, like 3/4 of the people in this house had norovirus, all the kids. And I remember by the evening, like the teachers and parents were panicking, and they were like, okay, well, there's clearly just like an epidemic of norovirus here. Social distancing never too early. Yeah, exactly. Honestly, nothing taught me more about how fast infections and diseases can spread. And then that night, I remember like being out for like a little walk with like my mate and his dad, and we were like, I hope I don't get ill. And I remember like walking around like I was 10 years old, right? So I was like touching like all like the wooden fences, and I was like, oh, touch wood, this will protect me, touch wood, touch wood. And I remember just like in the middle of the night, I just like woke up and I was like, I'm going to fucking vom. And I had to like run out. And what had happened is at this point, like out of the 60 kids or something that were there, like I think by the first night, like 50 of them had norovirus by the time everyone went to bed. And then like by the morning, like all of us had it. And at like 3 a.m. when I started to throw up, all the teachers, so there was like girls' dorms and boys' dorms in like this house that we're in, and the teachers had like set up like in the middle of like where the 2 dorms were, like in the middle was like the hallway that was big enough to like pull some chairs in. So the teachers had just put themselves in a circle, they got themselves some tinnies, and clearly didn't give a shit about protocol. They were like, we're drinking, this is hell. And just a load of buckets, water for the kids, tablets, and apparently, and I've spoken to my mate's dad about this in the years since, but he said effectively all that happened was that every couple of seconds a kid would come out, sit down, they'd hold their hand, the kid would vomit, they'd send them back to bed, and this was it. That was the whole night. And I remember going out 4 or 5 times, throwing up, like going up to like my teacher, Mr. Eyston, and I remember really vividly like throwing up and like flailing and like smacking him on the chest, because I'm such a bad vomiter. Like honestly, I'm not good at it. And then the next day, effectively what you had was 60 kids, sorry, with norovirus just lying around in this house while everyone was desperately just trying to make sure that, like, you know, give them toast if they needed food or just water. And then on like the third or fourth day, like there was definitely 2 full days. It was hell. It was hell. I remember just lying like on these settees with like all my classmates. Just the smell of sit was overwhelming, and watching like the Harry Potter films and just like passing out. Was that the drinking thing? Every time a kid throws up, you drink? Probably. But then all the teachers started getting ill. And I think basically the consensus was from the people who were there was like, the parents can't come get these kids. Like, this is an absolute plague house right now. We can just look after them, and we have to. So we're there for 5 days, and everyone only got well by like the 5th day. We were there for 7 days, and it was only the 7th day when everyone got well. And yeah, 7th day in, everyone finally felt better. We had a disto. So all we did was we did 1 day of activities and then the disto at the end. And then we came back, and my parents had no idea. Like, no parents knew that we were ill. Why didn't they tell them? That's weird, isn't it? But they didn't. So anyway, this bus turns up, back at the school, and all the parents are there. I haven't seen the kids for a week. It must be lovely, all these 10-year-olds. My mum says that when we came off, it was the most horrific thing she's ever seen. 60 kids that off this school bus, or 2 school buses, and we're all so thin. And we all looked incredibly ill. Like, my mum said I must have lost a massive amount of weight. And yes, as I've just seen Emma mention there, now I understand your absolute phobia. I'm terrified of being sick. I hate getting any kind of sickness bug. Terrifies me. I feel like I locked down my immune system from the age of 10 up until I was like... Because I was really sick as a child all the time, and then I didn't get a sickness bug between then and New Year's 2018, when I got food poisoning from a Wetherspoon's vegetarian breakfast. 10 kids got off the school bus, the other 50 didn't make it. So that is why I am terrified of throwing up. That's why I'm terrified of sickness bugs. It's because I had a microcosm of... Well, it's also why I was afraid of this whole virus then, is... I saw a microcosm of that happen, and it was horrific because I was one of the last people to get ill as well. So I just watched this inevitable wave of childhood illness sweep towards me. Anyway, sorry. This is my trauma stream. I like to just share my trauma